for coming today to our Hot Job Summer event with Ready, Set Exec. And we've got a great panel today to help support you in your job search. I'm going to go and read a quick bio to each of them. And we're going to also send you some information on all the speakers starting on Monday with an email sequence. So, these are very short and sweet bios. So our first speaker today is Yauhan Mehta. And Yauhan is an organizational psychologist and certified change management consultant with expertise across human resources, leadership development, and career coaching. He currently works at Deloitte Canada, and as a career coach, Yauhan also helps professionals gain career clarity, standing out as one of the top talent, accelerating their job search success, acing interviews, and landing their dream job faster. Over the past 3 years, he's helped over 300 professionals land amazing jobs at top global companies. Our second speaker is Ashley Watkins Thomas, and she's a job search coach and certified resume strategist with Right Step Resume, former corporate recruiter of 20 years, hiring for companies across banking, education, healthcare, nonprofit, and manufacturing industries. She's won multiple resume writing awards and was named JobScan's top 15 job search experts to follow in LinkedIn's top voice for job searching careers. Her job search advice has been featured in major publications, including Huffington Post, New York Times, and Wall Street Journal. And she's best known for positioning promotion-ready leaders to land more interviews and six-figure salary offers at top-tier brands. And our final speaker today is Sandra Clark, specializing in social media for the socially reluctant. That sounds good. Sandra Clark offers LinkedIn coaching services to help busy professionals build their online brand and showcase their expertise by creating great profiles on LinkedIn. She's a LinkedIn specialist who works with individuals, teams, and companies to create and manage their LinkedIn presence for dynamic results. From her teaching background and more than 20 years of training experience in Silicon Valley, she understands the finer points of LinkedIn technology and able to demystify and break down its concept to consumable pieces, basically helping you to manage your LinkedIn presence. And she works with business professionals from a variety of industries, from high tech to service, with any level of social media experience. So whether you're a beginner or advanced user, she can help you with your LinkedIn profile. So we will start off today with Yauhan speaking. It'll be about 20 minutes per speaker. So if you have any questions at all during any of the presentations, feel free in our chat box below to type in your questions for the speakers. Anything that's missed, we'll make sure we hit before the end of the day. We ask everyone to be quiet, of course, while we have our speakers going, just for echo purposes and so on. And feel free to send any messages at the end as well to thank our speakers and so on. So I open the floor to Yauhan here, and going to set him up as host so he can share a screen. I believe he has a presentation.
Perfect. Thank you, John. I will try sharing my screen now.
Yeah.
Are you able to see?
Looks good.
Awesome. Thank you again. Hello, everyone. Excited to share this presentation with you today. And the topic for today's presentation that I have for you is career clarity. And this is all about how do you find a career, not just a job, but a career that is meaningful, purposeful, fulfilling to you as you look potentially for your next opportunity. So before I get into the specifics of clarity and how to achieve that, interesting stat, right? So 90,000 is the average number of hours we will spend at work during our lifetime. That's a lot of time at work. So that's 1/3 of our lifetime. And you really want to think hard about this in terms of how you want to spend 1/3 of your life. And if you want it to be something that is stressful, strenuous to you, every single day, or you want it to seem like, satisfying, you want it to seem energizing, and it should not feel like work. And hopefully my presentation today will give you some good guidance on how to achieve that. There's lots of information, lots of stats out there, but Gallup recently in 2024 and 2023 showed that in North America, so this is, Canada as well as the US, majority of the workforce is disengaged. In fact, 70 to 80% of the workforce, both in Canada and the US, is stressed, is disengaged, is fatigued. So this is a big concern for a lot of employers. Now, why am I telling you, all of this? Why does it matter? Obviously, if you are fulfilled and if you are purposeful and if you feel engaged at work, that in turn has a huge impact on your mental health, on your physical health, on your emotional well-being, on your work life, family life balance. So it's very, very important for us to look at the topic of employee engagement, career fulfillment. So now the question is, okay, what do I do to, first of all, look for a job that is enriching, that is fulfilling, and then how do I actually go about doing that? So when we look at job searching and careers, one thing that is often overlooked in the job searching domain is this notion or this thing about finding clarity. And a lot of career coaches, job search coaches, they do a very good job with resumes and LinkedIn profiles and marketing and helping you with interviews. But the fundamental of a job search process lies in the fact that you need to be extremely meaningful and purposeful and intentional with regards to pursuing career clarity. By definition, career clarity is very simple. It's basically finding a role, a company, an industry where you feel challenged, where you feel energized, where you feel fulfilled, and it does not feel like work to you. And there are many different advantages which we will cover as well in terms of why it's so important to seek that clarity, and then of course strategies on how to achieve that. So the framework that I personally love to use for career clarity is the concept of ikigai, right? And I'm sure many of you have either seen or heard or read the book, but ikigai is the Japanese concept of finding reason for being, finding your purpose, finding your calling. And if you look at the Venn diagram over here, ikigai, right, is in the middle of finding work that you love, which is a combination of your passion and your mission, finding work that you're good at. So this includes, leveraging your skills, your strengths, finding something that the world needs, right? And also finding something that you personally value. So this is something that is aligned with your, values and what's most important to you and what matters most to you. So if you can look at finding work that encompasses these four domains, this is really where you can achieve that ikigai and where you can really find a role that is purposeful and aligned with your purpose. Okay, so that's a lot of the theoretical part. Now, how do we actually go about finding that clarity? So I know, some of you may have experienced layoffs. Some of you are looking to maybe switch jobs. Some of you are looking to pivot into, into something else, or some of you are completely looking to change your careers. So irrespective of what your situation is, to find a role, to find work that is meaningful, that is fulfilling, I have a 5-step process. And if you understand these 5 steps and if you follow these 5 steps, more often than not, people are able to find careers that are meaningful and fulfilling to them. So step number 1 is identifying your strengths. So strengths are basically things that you are naturally good at. So these are talents, these are gifts that you have possessed as early as when you were children, and that you have learned to develop and learn to hone in through teenage years, through adolescence, and into adulthood. Okay, I really love this quote over here, which says, talent is a gift from God, and whoever discovers it in himself has a certain obligation. And that obligation is to know that he cannot waste this talent and must develop it. Okay, so the question is, okay, how do I identify my strengths? I like to ask, these 5 questions when I'm coaching my clients. And I won't go into every single question, but this is basically doing a reflection, self-awareness exercise where you want to identify things that you are naturally good at, that you have been naturally good at since childhood. These are things that people come to you for help and support with. This is work that really feels effortless to you. Like you might see some of your colleagues struggle with this, but for you, this work seems, very, very effortless. So you really want to write down, what are these strengths of yours? And sometimes, you also want to ask your family, your friends, people who you've worked closely with to help you to identify and take note of some of these strengths. So step number 1 is strengths. Now, if you are someone who likes assessments, there's many assessments out there to identify your strengths. The one I really like is the Clifton Strengths by Gallup. And this will then help you with identifying, what category do most of your strengths lie. So some of you are good with execution, some with influencing, some are naturally good with building relationships, and the others with strategic thinking. Right. So I would recommend, and it's not a very expensive assessment. I think for like $50-$60, they'll give you a pretty detailed report on your top strengths. So I certainly recommend this assessment. And coming back to why strengths matter, right? So if you find a role that aligns with your strengths, research from Gallup has shown that this will lead to 6 times more engagement. It will lead to 6 times more likelihood of you feeling that you enjoy and you're able to bring your best self to work every day, and 3 times better quality of life. So obviously, aligning your strengths with your role has a big influence, has a big impact in terms of your day-to-day, in terms of your, livelihood, but also your well-being at home as well as at work. Part of step 1, along with your strengths, is also identifying your skills. Now, skills and strengths are different. So as this quote says, skills or talent is something you have naturally, versus a skill is developed by hours and hours of practice. So this is through work experiences, this is through education experiences, certifications, right? Volunteer work, community work that you have gained. So in addition to writing down your strengths, I also encourage you to make a repository of all of your skills. And you can use a table like this to make note of that. So you can, in the first table, you can write down all of the education courses, certifications you've had, and what skills have you acquired through those certifications, through those education, and also then write down all of the experience you've had. So all of the jobs you've held in the past, and what skills have you acquired over there. And also you can write down, how proficient have you become in those skills. Okay. And these things not only help with self-awareness, but these things then will help you in, writing down bullet points and skills for your resume. It helps you with things like your LinkedIn profile. It also helps you in preparation for your interviews, right? When they ask you questions like, tell me about yourself, or tell me about your top 5 strengths, right? You can certainly use this information, this data points for that. So a lot of people don't know, but LinkedIn also has a skills database where it kind of tells you, what are the top 10, 15 skills for your profession. So all you have to do is you have to Google something called LinkedIn Career Explorer. Okay. And when you Google that, click on the first link. And on the first link, it'll take you to LinkedIn's page. It's a GitHub page. And on that, all you have to do is type in your job title. And it will give you, these are different examples of job titles or potential job titles. It will give you a list of different skills that LinkedIn deems as the top skills for that job based on, their hundreds and thousands of jobs, this is what they put together as the top skills required for that profession. Okay, so I would recommend, if you feel stuck in terms of what skills really do I possess, you can use this as an additional tool for yourself. Okay, so that's step number one. Step number two is investigating your interest. So it's not enough to just go for a role where it aligns with your strengths and skills, but you also want to do something that you enjoy naturally, that you are, driven towards, things that energize you, things that provide you with happiness, with joy, right? So it's a combination of your skills along with your interests. And these are some of the questions you can ask yourself, right? So what are some of the things that you naturally like to listen to read in your spare time, right? What are your hobbies? What are your interests? What kind of work activities in the past have energized you, right? So when you perform these activities, you lose track of time, as opposed to what are some of those activities that drain your energy, right? So you might be good at doing that, but when you perform that activity, it actually demotivates you. It kind of drains your energy. So very important that for your next career move, you want to note that and then intentionally avoid roles where majority of that would be doing activities that are not motivating for you. Okay, so that's the interest. There's an assessment called the Holland Code, which I recommend, which again is a free assessment online. Just Google Holland Code, and it will give you, what are your different areas of interest, and it buckets them into these 6 different categories for you as well. And the third step in the process then, once you've identified your skills, your strengths, and your interests, is validating your values. And I love this quote by Roy Disney, which says, when your values are clear to you, making decisions and making choices on your career become very, very easy for you, right? So what I mean by values are thinking about things that are most important to you in your life right now, right? And of course, everybody has many things that are most important to them in their life right now, but this is where, you want to ask yourself things like, what's most important to you right now? What are the things that you absolutely need to have in your next career and would love to have? And what are some of the things you don't want to have? Irrespective of the role, irrespective of the company, irrespective of how much money they're willing to pay you. You absolutely, you don't want to have that. And then there are things that are non-negotiables for you, where you absolutely need to have that with your career right now. Okay, so this chart over here gives you a list of, close to 100 different values. And you can Google this as well. It's called the values assessment. And what I would like you to do with this assessment is to look at all of these values and then circle 5 or 10 of them, okay, that are highest priority for you right now. Okay, and then when you pick your next role, you want to make sure that that role, that company, that culture, that manager, that organization really aligns with the values that you've picked. Okay, and it's so important because people often get jobs and they forget to take note of their values, and then 3 months, 6 months into the job, they feel lost, they feel confused, they feel disengaged, and that's because they haven't taken the time to find a role that's aligned to their values. Okay, and then quickly just step number 4 and step number 5. So step number 4 is you want to gain clarity on your industry. So you want to be very specific on what industries you want to work for, either industries you worked for in the past, or maybe you want to try out different industries. You want to take note of at least 20, 30 different companies that you want to work for. You want to know more about, or kind of specify the work locations. And you want to write down, what kind of work environment are you looking to have? What kind of company culture would be best aligned with, with your interests, with your values? Okay, and when you look at gaining clarity function, I would recommend going a little bit deeper and deciding what role would be most appropriate for you as well. So these are just some examples, right? So for example, within within over here finance, right, there can be many different levels within finance, many different roles within finance. If you want to pursue entrepreneurship, again, there are many different kinds and types of entrepreneurs. So you want to be very clear on what that sample role is, and what that appropriate level is for you as well, right? So you're very targeted with your job search. Okay. And then the final step, which is step number 5, is crafting your career path to get you that career clarity. So number 1, once you have written down your values, your interest, and your skills, you want to look at everything and you want to connect the dots. So when I say connect the dots, what I mean is there will be common themes, right, that come out when you look at this data. So it might come across that you're someone that loves working with people, and your strengths are your communication skills or your relationship building skills, right? So you want to then purposely pursue jobs that will allow you to use those strengths, that will allow you to pursue those interests and align with those values. Or you might be someone that really likes data, right, and analytics, or you might like process and process improvement and operational kind of roles, right? So very important before you jump into the type of role that's best for you, to actually connect the dots over here between your skills, your interests, and your values. Once you've done that, I would encourage you, before you begin applying for jobs, have some informational interviews and coffee chats with people who are in the roles that interest you, right? So let's say you want to get into AI and big data and data science, right? Maybe that's a passion of yours. That's a potential opportunity for you. I would recommend people who have been working in that field for a few years and pick their brains on, what does the day-to-day look like? What kind of projects are you working on? What are some of the challenges? What are some of the trends in the industry? Right? And a lot of times people look at job descriptions and they make decisions that this is good and this is not good. But job descriptions can be very generic sometimes, right? And when you talk to people in those roles, you will get so much information, and it makes for more of an informed decision with regards to your career. Once you have those conversations, obviously, if you see any gaps in terms of certification requirements, experience requirements, you have to do your due diligence to fill those gaps. Otherwise, again, it becomes very difficult to get those interviews. And once that is done, then you're pretty much on your way to pursue your career path. So again, just a reminder, you have 90,000 hours that you will spend at work, and you might as well make them count. So again, this was a very high-level presentation, but I hope it was enjoyable. I hope it was informative. If you want to stay in touch with me, if you want to connect with me after this call, I don't use much of social media except for LinkedIn. So you can find me on LinkedIn, and you can scan this QR code on the screen. It will take you right to my LinkedIn profile. Otherwise, just search me by my first and last name. There's not too many with my first and last name, so you should be able to find me pretty okay. All right, so that's it for me, John. Thank you so much again for the opportunity.
Thanks, Yauhan. Great presentation. I think we had some questions. One of them was, where can we find the function and role chart at your step 4? Can we get a copy of that to share with everybody?
Absolutely, yeah. So I can send that to you, John, and then maybe you can distribute that. Or if I can find the link right now, I will put it in the chat while the others are presenting. Yeah.
And then the other question was, how many informational interviews would you recommend?
So I would recommend at least 10 to 20 informational interviews, not less than that, because you don't want to rely on just 2 or 3 people's opinion, because that could just be their opinion. I would also recommend informational interviews with people in different companies, right? So if you have 15 companies on your target list, talk to people in all 15 of them, and talk to more than just one person.
Sounds good. All right, we're going to go straight over to Ashley. You have the floor.
All right, let me share my screen.
Oh, I think I have to make you co-hosts.
Okay.
There we go.
All right. And let's move this toolbar out of the way. Good. Can everybody see that? We're good. So I'm going to give you 10 strategies for executive and emerging leaders. Because most people, if you're not at that executive level, you may be at that point where you're either branching into leadership or you're trying to grow within leadership. And so in which case your resume will look or should look a lot different than it does as an individual contributor. Right. So let's talk about, sorry, I'm trying to move this toolbar out of the way. It's all right, so I can see, yes. So for the resume basics, you want to make sure that your contact information is clear. One thing that I see with people who are going for executive level roles or leadership roles, typically they're going to be, they have about 10 to 15 years under their belt. So they may be someone who is age 40 or above, 40 to 50 or above, or you may even be in your 60s or 70s. So you're never too old to start those new positions. But one thing that I see with that is that the email address is often revealing of your age. So in those cases, when you have an email address that is associated with, say, your internet service provider or your cable provider, so maybe it's bellsouth.net. We had Bell South here in Alabama. You may have Charter. It may be Cox.net or whatever. Those are very revealing about your age. So I would suggest that when you're putting your email address in your contact information, that you focus on an email address that is standard across the board. So it leaves less wiggle room for ageism or age discrimination. So if you use like Gmail is an email address that is considered the gold standard. Or if you have, say, Outlook, or you may even have your own personal domain where you are able to assign an email address to yourself. That looks very professional for people at any age. But you want to make sure that the basic information is there on your resume, the name, the phone number, email address, and you also have your location where you're only putting the city, state, and possibly the zip code. And then if you have a LinkedIn URL or a personal website, that would be great to put it in your contact section. And then you want to have relevant section headers. So if you're talking about your work experience, it is clear you're using plain language. You're not using these, I like to call them decorative terms to describe commonly used section headers. So if it's your work experience or your professional history, you want to use common terms that anybody reading your resume would understand. Then you want to have a competency section, and then maybe you have your community involvement. And instead of using an objective statement, you would have a summary statement or an executive profile. And that's going to help introduce the reader to your content at the top of your resume that really drives home who you are, what you do, and how you add value as an individual. And then you focus on your formatting. You want the format of your resume to be very visually appealing. So if you're using an older format, say like when I had my first resume, I think that was back in maybe 2002 when I submitted my first professional resume, I used the Microsoft Resume Wizard. And so anytime I see those resumes, I automatically know that maybe somebody is using a more outdated format, or maybe they're, an older individual. So you really can do things to your resume that actually date you, that give clues into your age, or maybe that you're trying to conceal some information. So just be careful with how you present your information. And you want to make sure that you're using appropriate that you're using appropriate spacing. So you're using the real estate on your resume the best way possible to add value, where you're showing that relevant information that really, really talks about the things that you do well. So maybe the value that you bring to the table, the way that you've made money, saved money. And I'll go into some of that later in this presentation. So you want to start with the end in mind. Rohan gave some very good information about how you do that career discovery work. So you really want to take a self-inventory, look at your current resume, look at your current work experience, and see where you were able to add the biggest impact and how relevant that information would be to the positions that you're targeting going forward. So you only want to list about 10 to 15 years of experience on your resume, but that information needs to be relevant. And say that you are switching industries and you do have information from further back, you can still list that information. You just may not want to put that information within your work experience section. You may want to bring that to the top of your resume and list it as a career highlight. So that way you're showing the reader of your resume that you do have relevant experience and you have added relevant value to your previous companies, but you're also not giving away kind of how long ago that information was. Then you want to make sure that you're identifying and researching your job target. So really, to echo what Yauhan said as well, you want to make sure that you have done enough research about the companies, about the industries that you want to branch into, so that you know what experience you have is transferable to that new job target. You also want to pinpoint your unique value proposition, or your UVP. And so again, that is where you show where you add value. What kind of problems do you solve that's relevant to either the company that you want to work for, the department that you will support, or the industry that you want to pivot into. So really take a look at what you want, and you have to figure out those things before you even begin writing your resume, because you're writing your resume with the reader in mind, with the position that you want in mind. Now, when you develop an impactful summary statement, you're going to ditch the objective statement, because objectives are really outdated, and objectives really focus on what you want out of the position. So it's what you are seeking, the types of roles that you are looking for. But where you add the most value to your actual document is when you understand the job target and you speak directly to that company's pain points. So where is it that they're falling short? What problem is it that they want you to solve? Where will you impact that company's bottom line? So when you understand the job target, you're more apt to be able to speak or communicate your value as it relates to that target. And then be authentic. Don't be afraid to let your personality shine through, because people hire people. And they want to, of course, know how you fit in with the team or fit in with the company culture. But when it comes to how you as an individual are authentic, maybe there's a specific type of problem that you're used to solving in a unique way. So for instance, I had a client who was applying for executive roles, who had been coined, his department gave him the name the Velvet Hammer. And that was because he would put the smack down, but he did it in a way that was very refined, very soft, and that everybody would, enjoy working with him while he was doing that. So yeah, I'm going to, I'm going to, smack you into shape, but I'm going to do it in a way that's very caring, very soft, and very, you can appreciate that. You can appreciate the quality of it. So that was a way that we helped blend some of his personality into some of the, the resume speak, because generally speaking, I know resumes are pretty boring, right? They're not, nobody, I don't know that anybody wakes up in the morning saying, you know what, I want to get up and write another resume. So you have to find ways to infuse fun, excitement, and also your authenticity into your document. All right, so you want to remember the top 1/3, or you remember above the fold. So you think about it, if you were to fold your resume into three sections, like you were going to put it in an envelope and mail it off, then that top part of it is going to be the top 1/3. Or if you folded your resume in half, that's going to be the information above the fold. That is where recruiters and hiring teams look at the first part of your information. We see your contact information, we see the header, we see the job title, so we automatically know what type of positions you should be applying to. But then the most relevant information has to be above the fold or in that top 1/3, because if I don't see the information that I need right away, or if you're not speaking my language right away, I'm going to assume that you're not qualified for this position. And, you have to entice me to keep moving down the page, to keep looking at the second or even the third page of your resume, if you have a longer resume. So you want to be able to grab the reader's attention very quickly. And then you also want to make sure that in that section, you're listing your competencies or your skills that are most relevant to that position. So again, that top 1/3 is about relevant information. All right, then you want to make sure that throughout your document, you are quantifying your achievements. So talk about the ways that you have inspired your team, or that you have mobilized your team, or you have come up with a vision or a strategy that has helped the company either save money, make money, you've improved or created a process, you've eliminated some type of risk or liability for the company, or that you've built or even repaired relationships, or that you've influenced change in some way. So that could be through a merger and acquisition, it could be through the rollout of a new system. Where have you influenced change? Where have you been that change champion for your department or for your company? Then, you showcased your strategy and vision. Again, how did you mobilize your team? So when you mobilize your team, that means that you had an overall goal, but you were able to inspire them. You were able to educate them and coach them to that point of goal achievement, or even surpassing those goals. And then you want to look at, whether or not you can give clear examples of the things that you've listed as your competencies. So where do you have those clear examples of success where you've made some sort of change, where you've influenced the company's bottom line in a positive way? And then how do you shift the company culture? I know there's been, especially with today, Happy Juneteenth, there was a big push for diversity programs, for belonging programs, and things like that at different companies. But a lot didn't come from that, So if you were able to do something where it influenced ongoing change throughout your company, be sure to draw attention to that information. It doesn't necessarily even have to be from a race and traditional culture sense, but it could be just the culture of the organization, whether or not it's a culture of the organization where it influences people to listen to each other, to work more collaboratively, to support their customers more, improve customer service or the entire customer experience. I know in recruiting, we had a big push to improve the candidate experience. So how are we responding to candidates? How are we marketing the company? How are we representing the company? So you can think about the ways that you've inspired change in that way. And then I want you to remove overused phrases and outdated sections of your resume. So again, I talked a little bit about the objective statement, but sometimes there are phrases that you're using on your resume that are taking up way too much space, and they're not really adding any value. So if you say that you're responsible for, right? I only want to know about the thing that you actually did. I don't care what you were responsible for, because I was responsible for making my bed every day as a kid. Did I do it? Sometimes, I was responsible for, maybe taking out the trash, but it doesn't mean that I did it. So think about responsible for, get rid of it. Talk about the things that you actually did. So start the sentence after responsible for. So if you delete that, does that explain what you actually did? Saying that you were a team player doesn't really add much value to me. Gang members are team players, right? But I want to know, what did you do to inspire some sort of change or benefit to the company, rather than you saying that you're a team player. Plus, it makes you sound a little bit like an individual contributor when you use those phrases versus you promoting yourself as an executive or an emerging leader. And then the same thing with multitasking. I don't really care that you feel like you're a multitasker. I want to know how you were able to manage projects from conception through completion on time and within budget, right? So you did that multiple projects simultaneously. Those are the types of things that I want to know. And maybe you were successful with doing those things and you saved money in that way. Seasoned. Let's get rid of seasoned, because you season meat. You don't season an individual, and you don't season your experience. What you're trying to say is that you have an extensive amount of experience there. So what you could say is that you have a history of accomplishments in a certain thing. You don't have to say that you're seasoned or even accomplished, because they really don't add much value. And it's really anything that you can list on your resume that gives me the so what, then that means that you need to either rephrase what you're saying or you need to add more context to it. And a section that I want you to remove from your resume is references. So saying that your references are available upon request, that is an outdated phrase. Of course, you will give me your references if you want the job. If I ask them for you, you're going to provide those. So that's no-brainer information that could be taking up that much needed space that you need to show that you add value. And saying that you're a good communicator. What does that mean? So really add the context to it and explain by communicating at all levels of the organization, you were able to do X, Y, Z, right? Proven track record. Everybody says that they have a proven track record. Talk about that track record instead of saying that you have one. And then results driven. I see this a lot on resumes where people call themselves results driven, but yet they haven't listed a single result in that resume. It's completely full of tasks. So remember, anything that you list on your resume, especially if you're going to list it as a skill or an accomplishment, or a skill or a competency, you need to be able to back that up with proof in your examples and scenarios. All right, cut the fluff. Empty promises. I just talked a little bit about that, where you're saying at the top of your resume in that summary statement that you inspire all of this change, that you improve all of these processes, that you make all of this money, but you have listed no evidence. And then you're focusing a lot on your soft skills. You're saying things like you have good verbal and written communication skills. You demonstrate those skills in an interview. You demonstrate those skills by giving me the scenarios where you were able to carry out those things like problem solving, attention to detail, and all of that. Then you want to not list your high school information, even if you don't have a degree. And I know that's the reason why some people list their high school information, is because they don't have a degree. But when you don't have a degree, there are other things that you can focus on to show that you have education. So maybe you have attended college. Maybe you have taken some trainings that were on LinkedIn. Maybe you have taken trainings. You've gone to allison.com and you've taken trainings that are relevant to the job target. Focus on that instead of your high school information, because that could date you as well. And then you may have too many bullets on your resume. My rule of thumb is 5, but there are no true hard and set in stone rules about resume writing. You do what works for you in your situation. But if you try to list maybe 5 strong bullets in your first resume, first position on your resume, maybe you'll go up to 6. But as you go further and further back on your resume across those 10 to 15 years, you will use fewer and fewer bullets. So maybe you have 5, then you have 4, 3, 2, and maybe you don't have any for your oldest job on your resume. Listing things like in order to, again, that's listing information that you really don't need. Just say to do what? To do a thing, to do whatever successful thing you've done, including but not limited to. It sounds like a job description. Other duties as assigned, that belongs on your job description. You should not be copying and pasting your job description into your resume, because anybody who has had that job has the same thing if they did the same job as you. If they copied and pasted to their resume, it looks just like yours. And remember, we want to be unique. We want to add value as an authentic individual. So nobody should be able to take your resume and use it as their own. All right, number 8, keep it short. 1 to 3 pages is about all you need for your resume, depending on who your audience is. So if you're networking, you may have a 1-page networking resume. If you've had you worked at one company for a significant amount of years, you may only have 1 page. But generally speaking, most of my clients are going to have 2-page resumes, 3 pages if they're executive level, or 3 pages if they've done multiple projects and they need to list that they have several publications. But the 3rd page is usually, it's reserved for or used as an addendum more so than your work history. Because if you have the experience necessary to do the job, I should be able to pick that up from page 1, page 2 at the latest. Mind your fonts. So your fonts should be generally used across the board. So don't go too fancy. Don't go too small. Keep your font size between 10 and 12 and use a universal font. Now Outlook has shifted to Aptos. So we'll probably start to see that font in resumes, but mostly I will use Arial or I will use Calibri, or you could use Times New Roman depending on the industry that you're going into. That may be a requirement. But for me, Times New Roman is even outdated. It reminds me of print in a newspaper, and we rarely get our news on actual newspapers anymore. We're mostly getting those online. So remember, we want to have a modern feel. You also want to be sure to write concisely. So if there is a way for you to rewrite the sentence using fewer words, then do that. Don't put a whole bunch of words there that you said a whole paragraph and you could have summed it up in just 1 line. So write concisely enough to be able to explain what you did, but also to create that interest, because I will want to know more if I'm interviewing you. All right, then you want to look at your formatting. Your formatting should be clean and crisp, and it should be consistent throughout. So if you decide to use color or shading or borders, you should be consistent with how you use that throughout your document. So if you used a certain shading for your section header, it needs to be the same for the next section header. Also be mindful of your white space. So as you can see on the screen here, you see tons of white space here, and that's because this is a presentation slide, but I don't want to see a lot of white space on your resume. I want to see enough white space so that I can clearly define each section in your document, but I don't want to see white space when there's, you've kind of left bare bones information on your resume, and I need to know more. I need more context. So I usually use about a 1/2 inch margin all the way around in a Word document. The standard of, if you open up a blank document, it's already defaulted usually at 1 inch, but 1 inch leaves a little bit too much white space for my liking. And I want to put as much information on the page so that my clients will be considered as, ideal candidates for those roles. So I use a 1/2 inch margin all around and adjust from there, depending on how the formatting looks in the end. So here is a resume sample here that I did for an executive. And you can see there's a combination of borders, there's shading, but we have elevated the content so that anybody reading this resume can understand that this person is a fundraising executive. They have experience in nonprofit. And so throughout, we have bullets that are showing the achievements. We have just short descriptions under each position to explain what this person did. And then we also have, we have shown progression in position titles to show that growth so that it makes sense why this person would be going from a senior director into an executive level role. So I'll leave this on the screen for a minute. And if you have any questions about it, I will gladly take them. And I do want to draw attention to the fact that I have used text boxes here. And when you're thinking about maybe applying online and you're concerned about the applicant tracking system, remember the applicant tracking system rarely will recognize font color. So it really doesn't matter what color you use, just make sure that you are using a color that's appropriate for your level of position, for the type of position that you're applying to, and the company that you're applying with. I have used a text box here, but this is information that, so in the ATS, a text box will just simply be deleted. It's not going to automatically give you a rejection, but we have these same quotes because these are quotes from performance evaluations and from reviews for this client. These same quotes are visible on their LinkedIn profile. So the ATS is just going to delete the text box if it doesn't need it. So if you're putting information in a text box, make sure that it's either listed elsewhere in your resume or that it's listed maybe on your LinkedIn profile and you have a link to that on your document. As you can see, I have the link to this resume. It's a link to my LinkedIn profile, which is Ashley J. Watkins.
I think we had another question as well, actually. How many years of work experience do you recommend putting on resumes or LinkedIn profiles?
10 to 15 years of experience should be enough. I say that because most positions, even up to the executive level, are asking for 5 to 7 years of experience, or they may even ask for 7 to 10. I've not really seen a job posting asking for someone to have 20 years of experience. But it may be good for you to actually, draw attention, to that fact, because in executive level roles or higher level leadership roles, they're expecting you to have a little bit of age on you, so it doesn't really, it's not going to impact you that much as long as you are providing information and an entire resume package that looks modern. But 10 to 15 years, rule of thumb for me.
Oh, that's great.
Yep. So here's another example of an executive level resume. This is someone who was applying for field operations positions. And yep, so you can see the progression of the positions. You can see there are fewer bullets as we went back to those older jobs as well.
Another question came in. What resume format software do you recommend?
I use Microsoft Word. When you start to use other systems to build out a resume, they have hidden code in those documents that could create issues when the person that you're sending your resume to is trying to read that document. And then also it kind of locks you in to the, a specific format, and everybody's layout is going to be different because everybody's background and the information that they need to highlight is different. Yep. And so I want to draw attention to the last bullet, which is don't forget to network. Even though you may be applying for positions online, you need to have a job search that includes a healthy amount of networking and researching as well. Applying online and doing nothing else is the least effective way for you to land your next role.
That's a great segue to our next speaker as well.
Awesome.
Yeah. Any other questions, everybody?
Any questions? All right. Well, if you want to connect with me online, you can find me on LinkedIn. That's my most active platform. I can be found at Ashley J. Watkins. I'm also on Instagram at Right Step Resumes and Facebook at Right Step Resumes. And that's my email address if you want to reach out to me, and my website, rightstepresumes.com.
Thanks, Ashley. That was great. It really made me think about certain things about resumes that I haven't really thought about before, especially some of the impact statement. I think that was a big one because a lot of times we get caught in writing about what we want and not thinking about the employer, right? So
Yes.
good.
Yep.
One last question that came in. What if work experience is more than 25 years? Should I not be talking about it? How do I deal with that?
Probably not. It depends on whether or not you have enough experience within your most recent 10 to 15 years. If you have that, then the information that you have from 25 years ago is probably outdated now. So you just want to focus on your most recent, especially if it's relevant. If it is, so say you're pivoting back into something that you did 25 years ago, like say you've been working in HR and then you used to work in marketing and now you want to work in marketing again, you would just pull that information to the top in maybe a career highlight section, because that will help you get some relevant information on the first page of your resume. It also helps you not date yourself when you're talking about, information that's 25 years ago that may still, be relevant, to a point as far as functionality. So there's a way that you can position that older experience so that it doesn't draw attention to your age, but it still adds value, being relevant to the position.
And I think someone asked about Word or PDF format. What do you recommend?
So most applicant tracking systems will accept Word or PDF, but they usually like Word documents a little bit better than PDF. So you would want to always work from your Word document, save it as a PDF. PDF is usually when you're sending your document to someone via email so that it preserves its formatting. But always look to see when you're uploading your document, what are the acceptable formats for that particular company, because each company will be different and each applicant tracking system is different. There are thousands of them and they all operate differently. So just pay attention to the instructions first, but when in doubt, use a Word document when you're applying online, use a PDF when you're sending directly to someone.
That's good advice. Well, we're going to pass it over now to Sandra to continue on. Thank you, Ashley.
Thank you, Ashley. And it was perfect things that you were mentioning to lead into what I want to talk about with LinkedIn. Now, the thing with wrapping up the third speaker here is that I live in Silicon Valley and we tend to have short attention spans here. So, the caffeine has begun to wear off. And so I'm, for the most part, not going to show slides. I'm going to put you to work. I'm going to make you do some things and get you thinking about what you've learned so far and how you can put all of this into effect. I'm going to put my LinkedIn link in the chat. Please do reach out and connect with me. If you include a little note about where we met at this event, I'm more likely to treat you a little more specially. But LinkedIn has made a change so that if you have the free version of LinkedIn, you can only send 5 invitations with messages. So I won't take it too personally if you don't use one of your precious 5 on me. I've learned not to take anything personally. So I want you, if you're looking at your LinkedIn profile now, probably you are. If not, go ahead and do it. We used to, as teachers, tell people, close your computers, don't do anything. Now we accept the reality that you're multitasking. So I'm just going to try and control your multitasking to do something useful. So on your LinkedIn profile, under the More tab, it says Save to PDF. And I want you to save that PDF and I want you to look at it after. It's a really valuable way of seeing and proofreading what's on your profile. There are over 72,000 mangers on LinkedIn. Mangers, not managers. It is so commonly misspelled that it's actually a job title. So saving that PDF, looking at it that way, will be a way for you perhaps to spot or have someone else look at and spot any typos. Do not upload that beautiful resume you've created with Ashley's advice to LinkedIn. Think of LinkedIn as a little bit more like Tinder or some dating app, where you want to attract enough information to get them to swipe right and ask you for your resume or ask for an interview. Don't give it all away, because maybe you're going to customize it. You know, that Tinder person who loves sports, you're going to talk about sports. They like arts and creativity, you're going to talk about that. So you're going to be able to customize your resume a little for the jobs you apply to. So you've got that copy. Now you've probably seen at the top of your resume, get verified. You say, well, should I get verified? What does that mean? It is one of LinkedIn's valiant attempts to try and provide security to your profile. So please go ahead and do it if you can. If you use a different name on your driver's license than you use on LinkedIn, women sometimes have this, they use a married name somewhere. It is a problem. You must have those two names matching to get verified, but do it. Also, make sure you include all of your emails that you use in the back end of your LinkedIn profile. I recommend that the primary one you use is your personal one, not your work one, especially if you are what I call a stealth job seeker. Have those communications coming in to your personal email. If you don't have all of those emails in the back end, it's very easy to end up with a duplicate profile. I've had many people with as many as 6 or more duplicate profiles, because every time they went to a new job, got a new email, didn't think about adding it. You can actually invite people to connect with that email. They accept, it creates a new profile. So just beware. And I want you to remember this term, market value title and market value skill. This is huge for many reasons. So I want you to look at, be thinking about, as I say, I might share my screen later, or I might not. I might just have you keep thinking and looking at your own. When you participate on LinkedIn, we only see the first 30 to 50 characters, depending on whether it's mobile or desktop. So front load your headline. It's called your headline. It's not called your job title, but I want you to include your job title at the beginning. So when a recruiter is doing a search and they have a whole list of people in that search, that job title shows up at the very beginning, makes it easy to see. Yeah. Marketing director, whatever the position is, right there in the front, and then include additional keywords plus something that's unique about you, your mission statement or something special that will get attention to you. One of the things I was told by a colleague of mine who's a recruiter, he says, please don't bore the recruiter. They see so much that's boring. So make yourself stand out a little bit. When you are putting your jobs in your experience section, use that market value title. Silicon Valley used to be famous for this. People could call themselves literally anything they wanted to. Apple was famous for this. Grand Poobah, the Great Wazir, and things. People are not searching for those. So in your job title experience, use a market value title, the type of job title that recruiters are looking for. And you might say, well, my company doesn't call it that. That's okay. You're not lying if you use the market value title. Or if you feel you have to use the company title, in the description immediately below, put that as the executive director of, put that right up front so you're showing up there. If you are not currently employed or are working at something different from what you want to apply for, create a job at the top of your experience section with what it is you can do with that market value title, and available for openings in. So you're not lying, but that means when a recruiter does a search for a particular job title, if they search for anybody who's ever had that title, it would be much too big a search. So it needs to show up as a current search. And let's see. I don't have access to share my screen, so maybe I'll show that later after John notices and gives me access. But it sounds a little, so it's a filler. You know, there are things on LinkedIn you can put in like career break, career gap, but that doesn't do this magic of making you show up. And if anybody wants an example of that after, you're welcome to reach out and contact me, and I'll send you an example.
You should have
Yep.
access as a co-host now. You can.
Okay, thank you. Power, I love it. So let's see, I think okay, here we go. So you can see this example here. So the job title, actually, this is not as good as it could be. So your software engineer, available full-time as a software engineer. So nothing lying about this, but it's making the software engineer show up right at the top. That's a little hard to explain, but hopefully if you think about the way the search will work, that might help you a little bit. So I'll stop sharing again for a moment, because again, I want you to do the work and you to be thinking. One of the other things I want you to do, and this is going to irritate the heck out of you, but I want you to do it anyway. Where you have your open to work, now maybe you have it visible for everybody, or maybe you just have it visible to recruiters. I want you to mark on your calendar to go into that once a week and turn it off. And this is where it's going to irritate you, because I've got it all filled in with the job titles I want, and remote or in person, and the areas. And when I turn it off, I'm going to lose that. Get over it. Just make a note of those things, because turning it off and then immediately turning it back on again is going to bring you to the top of recruiter searches again. So I'm betting that many of you set up that open to work when you first started looking, weeks, months, many months ago, for senior level people, and you had it all looking nice and you never thought to go back in. Turn it off, turn it on again. You might find you're immediately getting some attention from recruiters. So if you do nothing else, turn that on and off again. Skills, I want you to think about market value skills. Those are the kinds of words that recruiters would be looking for if they were searching for someone with your skills. They're not looking for hardworking, team builder, whatever. Look for hard skills that you can add. And take a look when you've at that Yauhan mentioned about the skills that were, you could find the skills for specific jobs. I thought that was super helpful. Make sure they're there, and make sure that the first three are the most important ones. You're not going to worry about changing the order of all your skills. That would drive you insane. But if you add in some new skills, they're going to default to the top. And remember, I had you save a copy of your profile at the very beginning. You'll see on the left-hand side, just 3 skills. You want to make sure the first couple or 3 that we see are the most important ones. So there are some things with what I call the stealth job seeker, or even those of you who are looking, but you know how you can show to everybody, open to work. And I know a lot of senior people feel kind of, I don't know, just not very comfortable about this overt looking for work. It's not a bad thing anymore. You're in good company, so don't be afraid to show it. But if you don't feel comfortable, use the expression, use hashtag open to work within your profile, maybe right at the bottom of the about section. And so that if a recruiter who does not pay for the recruiter license, many of them don't, it's super expensive, they can still find you with a search for open to work. Otherwise, if you're only showing to recruiters, you're only showing to recruiters who pay for that license. So make sure you include that phrase somewhere, even if you don't want to be real overt with that kind of green. Some people feel it's like a badge of shame. It's not. get over it, but use the words that they are looking for. If you're updating your resume and you don't want your company to know, obviously just show to recruiters only that you're looking for work. But the reality is everybody should always be open to looking for other opportunities. You know, keep your current company on its toes. But if you are asked, I saw you updated your LinkedIn profile. Are you looking for another job? Be prepared with the answers. Like, I realize that people are looking at my profile to see if they want to work here, and I want to represent my company well, and I want to be seen as a manager of choice. So think about what your profile looks like as an employee of the company, as an executive at that company, and don't be afraid to make it look terrific. And so I have let's see what else I can do here. So think about what your story is. What's the story you want to tell on LinkedIn? How do you want people to see you? That about section, I hope you know all standard best practices on LinkedIn that we've been teaching for years. This shouldn't be new to you. It should be written in first person, not third person. Sandra Clark is a senior leader in, no, please don't do that. It's like I. Doesn't mean every sentence has to start with an I. You want to have a series of bullets, perhaps, as well as some paragraphs. And include the industries that you were experienced in. It will help recruiters see where your experience is. Make it easy for a recruiter to scan your profile and see if you're the person that they want to bring in for an interview. I do see a couple of questions there, and I know that many of you have just got this certain amount of time allocated for the presentation today. Absolutely connect with me if there's anything that doesn't get answered. Happy to respond to you offline. But I did see someone about having the green banner. And that is, it used to be, I taught people, no, if you were a senior level executive, you didn't want to show that. That's gone by the wayside. And I think it's fine to show it now. But some people are still just not comfortable with it. So again, if you don't use it there, just make sure you have the words in. And the work that you did under each experience, yes, not everything, again, like that Tinder reference I made, you're not going to put everything there. There's room for about 22,000 or so characters. You don't need to fill it all, but have a couple of lines plus some bullet points with some key accomplishments that you have. Any other questions? While you've got me, I'm trying to make sure we don't go over, because I know many of you have allocated the time and are going to have to jump off, and I want to make sure that you get your questions answered. And I think I answered that, the open to work banner. If you live in Silicon Valley, I swear half of Silicon Valley is unemployed at the moment. It's just a, revolving door. So no, if you feel uncomfortable, just don't, but put it somewhere.
I think we're good.
Okay, so please do reach out and connect. I know people often have unique questions that isn't applicable to everybody. Like when you want to be more than one thing on LinkedIn, you have a side gig plus your main job. So you'll see there are opportunities to work with me, and I'd be happy to do a complimentary consultation with you.
Sounds great, Sandra. Thank you so much for your help with LinkedIn. One last question here was having a resume uploaded on LinkedIn. I'm assuming they're saying how to do it or what format. I think you said not to.
Don't do it. You want to be able to customize your resume to where you apply. So don't upload it. Have them so that they're match each other. You don't want them to be contradictory, but you don't want to upload everything. You want to save something. Don't give it all away.
That's great. All right, we're just about to hit time here. So what we'll do is there will be a recording of the event that will be posted on YouTube. We'll send out an email sequence to everyone registered, and you will receive some information from each of our speakers, a copy of the video, some goodies from us as well. And want to thank everybody for attending today. And special thank you to our 3 speakers. I think Yauhan had to drop off with another meeting, but we thank him, we thank Ashley, and thank you, Sandra, for participating today. Thanks, everybody. Hope you're enjoying the rest of your week.
Thanks, everyone. Great to meet you. See you online.
Bye. Thanks for having me.